Excellent. And so let's spend some time together learning about financial aid, getting your questions answered. A reminder, the Q&A is open, and now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Tom, um, and all of his excitement about financial aid. It is contagious, and you're going to learn so much. Tom, it's all yours.
Boy, Summer, I don't know what to say after that one. That's like, holy mackerel. That's just beautiful. So, everybody, I'm very, very excited to be here. I am certainly part of the financial aid staff here at the University of Pittsburgh. I've been in financial aid, just to give you a little bit of a heads up, since 2002. And I love questions. That's exactly what I love. I mean, we're going over a general overview here for financial aid, but what I want you to do is be as interactive as you can be. Joel and Summer will in the chat if it's something that they think we should be bringing up, live. Great, I'll answer that question. I'm so excited to do that. I welcome you all here. I welcome you listening to this, and I'm so glad that you are, because this is a very important segment that every student should be very well aware of, and families. Not just a student, but it takes everybody together to make that student successful. And by everybody listening to this presentation, listening to me talk, it's a good thing. It's really great. So, okay, guys, here we go. We're going to talk about financial aid for undergraduate students. What is financial aid? Financial aid, basically that top line is the main goal of what financial aid does. It's funds provided to students and families to help pay for post-secondary educational expenses. I read that off because really financial aid is comprised of loans, grants, scholarships, even work study. Work study, we will discuss a little bit about it, but doesn't pay towards the bill, doesn't pay towards the charges, but it gives the student a very unique perspective to maybe gain experience that's an out-of-classroom experience, and we'll talk a little more in depth as we get to that slide. But obviously, yes, scholarship, grants, loans, all is needed in order for a student to be able to afford school. That's key. And we will touch on each one of those items throughout this presentation. Other sources certainly are going to be the University of Pittsburgh, but outside organizations, outside opportunities, civic organizations. Let's say you belong to a club or the student belongs to a club. There may be opportunities there that they could receive funding through a scholarship that's being offered through that organization. You always want to ask. Plus parents, if where you're employed, there could be opportunities from your employer that might help the student gain some kind of funding, which would be wonderful, absolutely fantastic. So again, you would want to ask your employer if there are opportunities that you can apply for. You may not know of them. You do want to check with those groups too if you belong to any, because it can certainly help. Even a small amount can help a student towards that overall goal, paying the tuition balance that they have. Applying for financial aid. So when a student goes through the process to actually apply, what are you doing? What's the step? The first thing is if you were here in front of me and I was able to ask the group in general, I'd say, before we bring this slide up, where do you go? And I would hope you would say the FAFSA form. How do you get to the FAFSA? Studentaid.gov. When would you start? October 1st, after October 1st of the senior year. So you would definitely go online and apply for that application. Every once in a blue moon, I still get the question, is there a paper application? Is there a paper opportunity? Not per se. It's so much easier and quicker to go online to studentaid.gov. Get the application in, For the University of Pittsburgh, for students right now that are starting in the spring, we have been starting to download the ICER information, the FAFSA information from students. From there, we would then send out a package or process need-based aid that the student can receive. And then based off that information is how you determine what you may need to do next by looking at that offer letter that you get from us. Okay. But again, the first step is that FAFSA form. You're going to go to studentaid.gov, apply after October 1st. And then the next thing is you'd create your FSA ID number. That's almost like I say your electronic signature. Okay. Both the student and the parent needs to go to studentaid.gov, submit that request so that you get that electronic item, the number, so you can sign your FAFSA form. By signing it, that guarantees that that information that you put on the FAFSA is accurate and complete. Okay? You do it each year. It's not that it's a one and done. One question I get is why? Why do we have to go through this process every year? Easiest answer, information changes. It changes from year to year. That can change need-based aid, but that's why you got to do that application every year. Okay, it's not a one and done. Once you do that application, you're going to certainly use, if you can, the IRS DDX, the Direct Data Exchange. When you click that little button, you're linking tax information with the FAFSA form. You bring them together. It's so much easier. Why is it easier? Because the information you don't necessarily have to input. By clicking that, it comes together. We download that information as part of the FAFSA to help determine the student aid index that the student has, which we're going to touch on the next few slides, what a student aid index means. Prior year, you're going to use tax information from the previous years that your student is starting with the FAFSA. So obviously, when you look at this year, 25, 26, you're using 23. 26, 27, you're going to use 24 tax information. It's always 2 years back. One, the Department of Ed thought of this a couple years ago, and they thought people always have this information readily. It's already done, completed, and finished, so you should be able to use it. Now, there are some instances that you could have a situation or a problem or anything that you may not have that documentation. Then reach out to us, ask us, give us a call, send us an email, something so we know that there's an issue. And if we can help you straighten it out and sort of fix it for you and help you, guide you, we're glad to do it. We're more than happy to do it. Okay. The state grant, for all of our people that are listening in or will be listening to this in the future tense, May 1st, very, very, very important. May 1st. You want to file that FAFSA by that date. Why? If you file it after May 1st, the application is late for considering any state grant opportunity. So it's so important to keep that deadline in the back of your head, because if you miss it, the hardest thing for me to say as a financial aid representative, well, we got your FAFSA in June. Was there a reason you filed it in June? Is there an issue that you were having? Maybe it's an issue that you could then speak to FIA with and ask them, but they have a pretty hard, fast deadline on that date. So please get the application in. Even if you may not be eligible for the state grant, but it's better to do it as early as possible. Okay. This formula is very, very important because it's used to determine financial aid eligibility. Cost of attendance minus the student aid index equals financial need. This is what's used to determine what a student can receive in need-based aid. Ironically, there's so many people that when you understand this formula, very simple, yet it impacts so many factors for a student to receive any kind of financial aid opportunity. One example. So let's say there's a student that we're discussing, their cost of attendance, they're an in-state student, is around 40,000. It's usually 41,000 plus. But let's say 40,000 just for the sake of this. So the cost of attendance, the budget, tuition, fees, living expenses ends up being 40,000. The student aid index is also 40,000. Now, if you were in front of me and there was a crowd of people or an audience in front of me, I would say, does that student have any financial need? No, you do not. Now, I should have asked in the chat. You could have put that answer in the chat, but that's okay. I just want you to understand that concept. So obviously, cost of attendance minus student aid index equals need. If the cost of attendance now, we'll reverse it, is 40,000, but the student aid index is 0. Does the student have financial need? Yes. Then the student would get packaged for any kind of need-based aid because the student aid index is less than the cost of attendance. Okay? And I'll take 1 second. Summer, do we have any questions or anything as of yet?
Not yet.
Okie doke. That sounds good to me. So if you do, guys, remember, please put it in the chat. They will stop me and I'll gladly answer them, or they will answer them from behind the scenes. Okay. The cost of attendance in the student aid index. All right. I touched a little bit on what a cost of attendance comprises. So there's direct cost and indirect cost. Direct cost are costs that you will see on your bill, on your charges, tuition fees, for some students, room and board. Not all students. Some students will live off campus. If you live off campus, there's no charge on your bill. But it's built in the cost of attendance that if you need to borrow a different loan or an additional loan, you could use that to help pay for what you owe is in a refund to your rent, you're paying for an apartment, whatever the case may be. But you would use that, okay? But if you live on campus, then that cost is directly on the bill. And when you register and you have the cost, the charge of living on campus, that's part of the cost, then your aid can help pay that balance that you have. Either way, it could come back to you in a refund because you don't have the charge of living on campus, or you could have a charge of living on campus, and then that just comes out of the financial aid that pays to your account. Indirect costs are books, supplies, transportation, incidentals, everything combined, right? That cost is still built in the cost of attendance, but it won't show on your bill, okay? If your balance is paid and you get a refund, you could use that smaller refund if you live on campus for book expenses. So you want to use that money, that refund for books? Fine. That's why it's built in that cost of attendance. So again, it's very unique to the university and the school you're attending. And what I mean by that, not even the school of the University of Pittsburgh, but schools within Pitt. Some professional programs can be higher than other schools. Dietrich Arts and Sciences is less than nursing. So nursing has its own cost. At times when you look at that, that can be confusing, but that's why some costs of attendance can be a little higher because you have nursing, you have business, you have the professional schools. They have their own cost. SHRS, the School of Health and Rehabilitation Sciences, they have their own cost attached. It would be a little more than arts and sciences, okay? So again, cost of attendance is tuition fees, living expenses, and incidentals. The student aid index is made up of the family situation. That's what determines any kind of need-based aid, the number that's calculated from the FAFSA, whether it be negative 1,500 to all nines or whatever it may be in between. That determines what a student's eligibility would be for that year in that time. That's why you're doing another FAFSA, because why? Income can change. Income can also be the same, and that's fine. If it's the same, that student aid index may follow that student from first year, second year, third year, and fourth. But if income changes, that student aid index could go up or could go down. One year you may not be eligible, and we will touch on this as a federal Pell. One year you may be. Why? Because that index that's being driven from the income that's reported on the FAFSA dropped and it went lower. Okay. So you always want to keep these two factors in mind, because when you get that offer letter is being sent to you, the financial aid offer letter indicating what a student's eligible for based on these criteria, based on the formula that we had previously, and then based on the explanation of why these are so important to determine that need-based aid. Okay. Grants that a student can receive. So obviously, if you're an in-state student, the first one is Pennsylvania, FIA. Okay. When a student gets an email from FIA, please don't ignore it. Please look at it, read it. If you have questions, can you reach out to our office? Sure. But we also may direct you back to the state. There could be documentation or information after you complete the application through pheaa.org. When you go, if you've never gone to that site, it may not be a bad idea to just at least log on and see what's there. But for Pennsylvania residents, that's the number one grant that a student can receive. Now, for us, the students that are out of state, if you're in Delaware, Washington, D.C., Massachusetts, Ohio, Vermont, West Virginia, if you fall into this category of any of these states, then you may be able to get an out-of-state grant. Who you need to reach out to, Ohio, Massachusetts, Vermont, and the ones that we have listed, is that state agency. They will be the ones that will need to be contacted to see if a student is eligible to receive something. Then we get a roster, we get a listing of students, certify that and say, yes, that student is at the University of Pittsburgh and they can get a grant from that state. But again, all we have is information from these states. Let's say there's somebody out there that's going to listen to this. It's New Jersey, New York. To my knowledge, no, there is not one, but you can always ask your state agency. It never hurts to ask. Sometimes the answer isn't the greatest because why? It's a no, but it never hurts to ask. Okay. Now, the federal grants, the federal Pell and the Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, are two separate opportunities, but they're hand in hand. What I mean by that, the federal Pell and the SEOG, as we call it in financial aid, is a need-based grant. Now, the grants that you get from the states, they are also, it's based off of need. So when that state agency gets information from the FAFSA about a specific student, they then send us information because they may be eligible for that grant. Federal Pell works the same way. The student aid index is going to drive if that student's eligible. Usually when you're going above 6,000 or so, roughly in that ballpark, then the student may not be eligible for the Pell. But in the same sense, the student would have to be eligible for the federal Pell Grant in order to be eligible for the SEOG, the Supplemental Educational Opportunities Grant. You would never get the SEOG without receiving or being eligible for the federal Pell. Okay. And again, both of those are need-based aid. So here comes the loans. The loans are something that you want to keep in mind that it's, you know, is it required? No. Is it a opportunity? Yes. It's there if you need it, right? We'll go into loan amounts and loan totals that a student can get for each year, the next slide. But just keep in mind, very basic, very, very basic. The federal direct student loan that's subsidized and unsubsidized. Subsidized, the interest is will not accrue until after the student graduates. Unsubsidized, the interest starts the day the loan pays in. When you get your offer letter from us, that will be designated as to what type of loan the student is getting being offered. Do you have to take both? No. If you just want to subsidize and the interest is being paid while the student's in school, great. If you are able to pay that interest, you will get statements from the servicer. Please, please listen. If you can pay that interest, please do so. You'll get it every 3 months from the servicer. It's so important that if you can pay that, pay it. It's going to help the student in the long run. So again, you're thinking, okay, I can pay this smaller amount. Keep track of it, keep record of it, keep on top of it. Why? Because if you pay that, you're not going to be responsible for that when it comes time when you do repayment. Joel's great at that kind of stuff. And I know if Joel could, he would tell you too. Anything you can do to help lessen the amount you need to take for school, or anything you can do to help keep the loans in check by paying that interest that you have accumulated at the time that you're in school, great. That's such a wonderful thing if you can do that. It truly, truly is. But again, you don't have to take both loans. They're both offered. They're going to be in the student center through their My Pitt. They'll need to accept it on that end. And then what do they need to do? If they've never taken a loan before, studentaid.gov. They're going to go to studentaid.gov, log in, create an account, do a master promissory note, do an entrance counseling. Once you do that, those two items, plus completing through the student center by accepting it, those three things, the accepting on through My Pitt under the student center, going to studentaid.gov, completing a master promissory note, and the entrance counseling. Both will be labeled so that you'd be able to find it, complete it, you get a confirmation, and that'll allow that loan to disperse. But if you don't need the loan, certainly don't take it. Okay? So Parent Plus loan right now, you still can for this term borrow a Parent Plus. That's an option that parents can take for the educational expense of the student. It's a good thing, in a sense, to help pay for the balance, but it's also a loan. So you want to keep that in mind. The interest rate is going to vary from year to year. The interest rate with the federal loans is going to vary from year to year. So you won't have one fixed set interest rate for when you start taking those loans out. There you want to always keep in mind, because a loan is a loan. It's not a grant. It's not a scholarship. It's a loan. You got to pay it back. If you try to keep it all federal, that's great. But again, there's a separation with the plus and the federal direct loan. That's the students. The plus is a parent. So again, if you want to combine the two, you cannot. They're going to be separate. So just keep in mind, these are options to help pay for tuition that the student has. The last one is a private loan, a loan through a private lender. That's one that all students can certainly think of, but the one biggie with that is that they're going to need a cosigner, a credit-worthy cosigner. So is it a guarantee that the student is going to receive that loan when they apply? No. Why? Because let's say the student applies for the loan and the loan is denied because the cosigner that they supplied to that servicer didn't have the credit level that they need to receive that loan. Is there any kind of an appeal or any kind? Because I've gotten this question actually a few days ago in an email and then in person yesterday. You'd reach out to the servicer, but it's up to them. Maybe there's other documents you could still supply or give to them. But again, that would be up to the servicer. That has nothing to do with the school. The school itself is not one that you can borrow through. You would borrow through these private lenders. And the other thing that we do not have is a recommended lender list. Yes, you can go to a place on our website, the University of Pittsburgh website. If you go to the main Pitt page, pitt.edu in the search box, if you type in private educational loans / fast choice, that'll take you to our area where most commonly services are used by Pitt students, that you could look at those opportunities. But again, the interest rate may not be fixed. You would try to get a fixed interest rate. That could always be best, but it could be a higher rate. So you'd want to look and take a glance of other lenders that are there. Why? Because there could be one that's lower, one that's fixed. You want to maybe investigate with that one first. But it's a private loan. It has no federal backing whatsoever. Okay. One last thing I want to add with the Parent Plus loan. Let's say there is a parent that applies for that loan right now. And for whatever reason, because of credit, they are denied that loan. If they're denied the loan, the student will get an additional unsubsidized federal direct loan. Again, if you were in front of me, I would say, well, what is the unsubsidized loan? Interest is accruing on that loan from day one. Okay. So again, if you have questions with these loans, questions with what I'm saying, please put it in the chat. Please ask afterwards. We'll leave some time. Usually I leave about 10 minutes or so before the presentation is over so that you get opportunities that you can ask questions, because we're so happy you're with us. We're so happy you're here listening to me. Very grateful that you would take time out of your day to do this. And it's very important that you understand and you try to get your questions answered. Okay. The next one is the loan totals that a student can get. First year, second year, third year, and beyond, and the aggregate loan total. So when you look at this, right, the current rates that are out there, we put for this year. Now, keep in mind, this is what I want you to understand from what I said previously. Those interest rates will change from year to year. The ones that were offered last year and the ones that are offered this year, they change. Okay. Loan totals that we have is for the first year is $5,500 overall, $6,500 second year, $7,500 third year and beyond. Well, keep this in mind. The first year total typically would be $3,500 subsidized, $2,000 unsubsidized. The next is $4,500 subsidized, $2,000 unsubsidized. The third is $5,500 subsidized, $2,000 unsubsidized. Why do we have just a total on that block that you can see? Because if the student has no need, remember what we said way back in the previous slides, cost of attendance minus student aid index equals need. If there's no need, you can still get that full loan, but the full loan is unsubsidized. Okay. Where I told you you could receive 3,500 subsidized, 2,000 unsubsidized. But if there's a need component to that calculation of cost of attendance minus student aid index, there's a need. If you don't have that need, then you can get that full amount of the loan. The loan aggregate limit for an undergraduate student is 31,000. 23,000 of that number, 23,000 would be subsidized if applicable, if eligible. If the student is eligible for that amount of 23,000 in a subsidized loan, broken down each year, 3,500 the first year, 4,500 the second year, 5,500 the next 2 years, the third and fourth year, that's fine. But if you're not, the total aggregate that a student can gain in the federal direct loan the entire time they're in school is $31,000. How you can keep track of what the student has taken and the student can keep track too is through the website studentaid.gov. They can create an account or go through, you're going to view your loan history through with also the NSLDS, the National Student Loan Data System. That comprises of all the loans that a student has. And from there, you want to keep track so you can see where you fall and how you fall into the category for the loan, for the subsidized and unsubsidized, and the amounts you get. The amounts you get as a first year, second year, third, and fourth, and beyond is based on credits. So again, if you're taking your first year of school and you completed all the credits that you attempted and you're at 24, that following year, you're going to be on the second year level. For those of our friends that are out there that are transfer students, please keep in mind when you meet with your academic advisor, if you are a transfer student, you can go through a transfer evaluation. What is that? So the credits that you've taken at the other school, you would then go through an evaluation with you and your academic advisor and see how many of those credits transfer in. Through that determination, what you would see is that could change the level of loan. So when you were first coming to Pitt and you were admitted, you got 3,500 subsidized, 2,000 unsubsidized. Now you went through a transfer evaluation and you transferred almost 60 credits in. That jumps you from the first year to the third year. Why? Because those credits attached that are completed now takes you to the third year level of student because you have more than 54 credits completed. Okay. That can get a little confusing at times, please ask if you have questions with that. And as I said previously, if a parent is denied from that Parent Plus loan, then and only then can a student get an additional unsubsidized loan. And what would they get? The first year they could get another 4,000. The second year they would get another 4,000. And the third and fourth years it would be 5,000. It's a little bit more, but it's an unsubsidized federal direct loan. Okay. All right. The next slide is going to tell you a little bit about work study. So what I like to talk about work study that I think is pretty important, more so than anything, work study is an out of classroom experience. Now, we don't really say much with that, except I'll go over the criteria that, you can't work more than 20 hours a week. You got to be in classes full time. You would get an opportunity to apply through options to get a work study job. But The key is if you are in nursing, if you're in business, or if you're in some field that's here at Pitt, and obviously nursing or SHRS, the School of Health and Rehabilitation Sciences, if I look out my window, hospitals, I see them. There you can gain experience that other students don't have. You're working in a field or an area that you like to do. I always say, hey, we're thrilled to take students in for work study that want to have an interest to see to work with students, working with financial aid. Do we get a lot of takers? Not as many as you might think. Joel has wonderful students that work with him. They are spectacular, absolutely wonderful. And they gain and they learn from financial wellness. And it helps them in their career, in their life. So it's really a good thing with work study. Yes, you're going to earn money. Yes, it's money that you can use to help save and possibly pay down loans in the future. If you work and you save everything that you worked for from work study, that's great. That's wonderful. But if you're not eligible for work study, then you can look into student employment because you're a non-need based student. So you don't have that eligibility there. You can go through student employment. When you do that, there's just as many opportunities there as you would in work study. The only difference is the payment. Sometimes student employment may be paid a little more. Work study usually tries to keep up a little bit with that, but both are such wonderful opportunities. You would certainly apply early. That's key for both. You typically only have one job. That's key. They're usually minimum wage. I mean, there may be some that are out there that are more. Like I said, student employment may pay a little more. There is paperwork that you're going to have to do once you get the job. You would be doing that with you and your supervisor from that position. And then you have to do time cards. Time cards would be tracked in order for you to gain the hours that you're working so that you get paid for those hours. It's a great opportunity. It really is. And students have said, well, I wasn't eligible for work study, but you can do student employment. And if you do either one, it's you're golden. And if it allows in your schedule too, remember, you're not here to work. You're here to work in class, in school, and get good grades. And each and every one of you out there will. But this gives you another little opportunity that maybe some students may not have or may not do because you gain experience from working in an entity that you're hoping to do for a long time in your career. Okay. Special circumstance that this is an option that, may not be for everybody, but certainly may be a very important part of what you need to do. Okay. In a nutshell, a special circumstance is when there's an issue or something going on in the household. Okay. So what do I mean by that? Let's say you had earnings and you were on your current. So this year, right now, we're starting 26. But in 2025, so this is for the 25-26 FAFSA, that you're going to use 2023 tax information. So by using 2023, okay, you now come in and say, and you meet with one of us and say, well, my parents' earnings in 2024, were much less than 23. But what I had to put on the FAFSA was 23. Doing that I had to do that. Well, that's not really reflecting the correct information that's taking place right now. That's when special conditions kicks in. because you're showing there's a change of income, there's an adjustment of income. That adjustment is going to definitely be given to us, to one of us, so that we can look and see if that would be enough of a change with that income to allow other need-based aid to be offered to the student because of that change. Is it a guarantee? No, it is not. Is it a good opportunity? Is it a case by case? Yes. But the only way you're going to know is one, if those numbers from 23 and 24 are different, or if they're different with 25. Think about it. We're in 25, certainly this past year. So if 25 was different than 23, you're going to ask because that was taking place now, right now. So we don't know that's happening in your lives. That's when you reach out to us. You can email us, you can call us, and we'll have the slide to give you our contact information. And I also will include my email, my Pitt email, that you want to reach out to me, please do so. Gladly. Just give me a little time to respond back. I do a lot of these, and there's a lot of people that do reach out, and I'm fine with that. That's okay. Just give me a little time. But this is something that's more unique to certain individuals that might fall into this criteria. Most of you out there could be thinking, well, this guy's going on and talking about all this stuff, but my income hasn't changed. That's fine. Then that means you wouldn't be involved with any kind of special circumstance or special items or special because of not having that change. But if there is something, then you reach out to us so we can try and help you. Again, it may not result in a change of financial aid, but at least you went through the process and you saw and did see, hey, there is a possibility that I may be able to gain a federal Pell where I didn't get it before. I wasn't eligible for it before. Why? Because the income was different. The income was less. Being that the income's less, through this process, you could gain additional funding or additional opportunities. Okay. So again, it's basically just with job loss. It's more or less with job loss. There are some other things that may constitute a special conditions. But the key is if the parent lost their job. If there's a divorce or separation, again, after the FAFSA is filed, then yes, that parent, that's the sole support of that parent, there may only be one as opposed to two because of the divorce or separation situation. If that's the case, again, you reach out to us. But even through reviewing that process, you got to remember it may not make a change in need-based aid. It truly depends on whatever's happening at that time. In some ways, it's a snapshot in time, but you're also using that year's information to help show that there has been a change. Okay. All right. The next one is progress. I always hate saying this one because I know each and every one of you are going to do fantastic in school. But we want you to have this as a tool so you know what could happen or what could transpire. Academic progress is basically saying, okay, a student is supposed to do a certain GPA or a certain quality point average, grade point average, while they're here at school. They can't exceed a certain time frame and they have to complete. And I would also say, if you were in a setting that I was in front of you, 67% of the credits attempted you would have to complete in order to be in good standing. So the first thing that I would say to you is, okay, you have to have 67% of the credits attempted. If you took 100 credits, how many credits would that be? Now, I don't know, I think we have a little bit of time just to make me know that you understand. If there's somebody in the chat that could put the amount of credits that you would have to complete if you attempted 100 and you need to be in good standing of 67%, how many credits would you have to have done um, and completed to be in good standing? Now, Summer, I'm going to leave this one up to you. Did we get any answers in the chat as to how many credits?
Yes, we do not in the oh my goodness, not answers to the question yet. You can pop them into the Q&A. The chat doesn't work, but the Q&A does. And then
Oh, okay, great.
we
So
do
they
have
could
two
put it into
questions for you when we're ready
Oh,
for the
good. Well, we'll be getting to that in about a minute. So, if just for the sake of time, it would be 67 credits that you have to complete. So, again, for academic progress, you have to be at a 2.0. Now, again, as a first year undergraduate, it's a little less, it's 1.5, but I always say go for that 2.0. You will be able to do it. I know you will. And there are things that happen in life, though. There are things that happen in your life. And because of that, you may have to withdraw. You may have to take a W grade. And that's okay. But that's when you get the academic progress appeal sent to you and you would explain that situation. You can't exceed 150% effort to get that degree. Why? Because you're going above and beyond the amount that you would be eligible to get that academic degree of 120 credits. So you can't go above that number in credits that you're attempting. And again, 67%. But if you do get that notification at the end of the spring term, then what you could do is you could appeal with you and your academic advisor. Okay. One last thing before I get to my one of my favorite slides in the whole presentation, the thank you. I want to mention there's a scholarship opportunity that all Pitt students should be logged into. Summer, here comes your big thing. You're going to put that little link in the chat. You're going to go to Pitt Funds Me. It's a scholarship search engine. Students can log in, create an account. Once they create an account, answer questions about themselves. Any kind of opportunity will be sent to them to apply for. Is it a guarantee? No. Is it an opportunity to maybe gain additional funding? Yes, it's a wonderful opportunity. And it's very simple. You just need to go back in and update by answering more questions about yourself. As you answer more questions, you get attached to more opportunities. As you get attached to more opportunities, you can apply for more scholarship awarding. Just remember, way back when, you can't go over that cost of attendance, your budgeted number that you have as a student, whether you're in state or out of state. And the only difference with those charges, with in state or out of state, is the tuition cost. Remember, as I said previously, each school plus in state and out of state would have their own charge, which could increase some of that cost of attendance. Okay. Summer, I'm ready. We got about 10 minutes left. We're right on target here.
Yes.
This is pretty good. I'm not used to that. You know what I mean? I'm usually behind.
No, you did perfect on time. And Joel has been so fast with the links in the
Oh,
chat.
yeah. Joel's
I see
great.
them. I see them all in there. Thanks, Joel. The first question
Yep.
is the FAFSA does not consider having multiple students in college simultaneously.
No.
Do- Does Pitt entertain appeals for more aid in this case?
Geez, guys, I'm so sorry. No, we do not. It's if for those of you that may have had students that previously used to use the expected family contribution, the EFC, that EFC would be used to say you have so many students in school. Unfortunately, the student aid index now only uses the amount of family in school. So there's no appeal to do the number in school. they would be used in the number of family in the calculation, and that would help determine the student aid index. But we do not, the University of Pittsburgh does not appeal number in school. Yep.
Thank you. And then this next question you covered in special circumstances, but I want to throw it back out there just in case
Sure.
you have anything to add or anything else that this person asked it anonymously, and if they'd like any clarification, please feel free to send more questions in the Q&A. The question is, what if I'm laid off and my 2024 tax forms don't apply anymore?
So that's a good question. And when when you're looking at you first would have to see, because again, it's a personal basis for this question. And obviously, if you're laid off in 24 and you didn't file taxes because there was no income in 25, we would look to see where you were with earnings. So when I say earnings, did you have unemployment benefits? Did you have some other form of money or income that came in that was separate? Would we look at Social Security benefits and all? No, 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 no. But it's more of a case by case. So there's not, there may have been earnings. If there was no earnings at all, then you can only put on the FAFSA what you have, which would be zero. But if there was some kind of unemployment or any other form of funding that was taken out from an IRA or anything of that nature, that also can be included. So I wouldn't say it's a one-stop shop answer, Summer. It's more of a case by case that individual could always reach out. Like I said, if it's okay, you could put in the chat, I'm going to give my email. This might be a good time to do it right now. My personal email address, and I know every time I do this, I see my little lines go up. It's T as in Tom, J as in Joseph, D as in dog, S as in Sam, T as in Tom, 27 at pitt.edu. You're more than welcome to email me, ask any question that you have, and I will get back to you. It might take me a little bit of time because I do get inquiries. But if that individual that was anonymous wanted me to talk with them and go over their specific case, sure, I'm very happy to do it. We could always set up a time that we could talk if that would help. Summer,
Yeah.
anything else?
No, that's wonderful. We've got all of the questions that were in the Q&A answered. That was very helpful. In the chat, I put Tom's email address. You
Yep.
should have that. Thank you, Tom. This was so helpful. Thank you, Joel, behind the scenes. I appreciate that so much. A reminder that the recording will be on our Pitt Student Affairs YouTube channel, along with all of our other Pitt family webinars. I really appreciate it, Tom and Joel, both of you, and everyone listening. Please have a good day.
Take care.